What if you could lose fat without losing muscle and actually feel stronger as you age? And what if the real secret to boosting your metabolism wasn't just eating less, but getting enough of the right building blocks? And what if you could finally actually have more energy, better workouts, and visible results without depending on crazy diets or caffeine or lots and lots of protein shakes? Today, we're diving into the real science behind amino acids, not just protein powders, because those can be somewhat important, we've learned, but more about amino acids specifically, and if they are important, should we be taking them, and what to be looking for in them, and how does that differ from branched chain amino acids? Today, I can't wait to talk to Angelo. Angelo, thank you so much for being here. Not only are you the founder of Kion, but you are the one taking the science around protein, known for simplifying protein science. Like, you are really good at what's going out there around protein powders, about eating enough protein, even around aminos, and really simplifying that so people can fully understand. So thanks for being here today.
Natalie, thanks for having me. And I just want to say right back to you, wow, the way that you presented what we could talk about in the show is so well synthesized too. I love it. I'm excited.
I can't wait to dive in. So, okay, first of all, what makes somebody so interested in protein? Like, where did that even come from? I know it's a trendy topic lately, but why, what made you so interested in that?
Well, honestly, I think protein is hyper relevant for all of us, any living being, creature. But I did grow up in a family that was very into natural health and into fitness. I'm 41. And so in the 80s, my parents actually had a natural health food store and were really into fitness. And they chose to be pescatarians. So that meant that most of our protein came from dairy and from eggs and a little bit from fish, but a lot from plant proteins. But I was gonna say they weren't stupid. Like, they knew that if you're gonna eat a lot more plant proteins, you have to think a lot more about combining, about how to get a complete protein. And so from a very young age, we talked about essential amino acids, getting complete proteins. And I actually got exposed to amino acids as a kid and took them. So all the way back, that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
And then it's just, as you age and go through different stages of life and you realize how important they can be, from, trying to build muscle, trying to cut fat, to trying to recover from an injury. Protein, nutrition, and specifically essential amino acids just play this crucial role in all of those. And then as I've started to age and realize that it's a little bit harder to maintain muscle, it's become that much more important again. And so from a personal level, it's through all the different stages of my life, it's been this real crucial component to finding, I think, my most ideal health.
Okay, I want to back up to the plant-based comment for a minute. So you grew up that way, and that's interesting because a lot of people that are on plant-based diets, they don't really learn about the importance of combining. First of all, are you still plant-based? Is this
No,
still?
I'm not.
You're
No,
not.
I'm omnivore. Yeah.
But do you believe now that someone that is plant-based could get enough protein with what you've learned? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think they can. What I would say is it's nuanced though. We can get a lot more into this. What I would say is that from a pure protein perspective, animal-based proteins are richer in the key nutrients and the proportions of those nutrients, essential amino acids, and they're more digestible, and you can get them in forms that are much less calorically dense, meaning you get more of this essential amino acid for less total calories. There's many more opportunities to do that with animal protein. So if you choose to be vegetarian, you can still do it pretty well, like dairy proteins and eggs. If you really want to cut all those out and you're only going plant protein, you just have to be a lot more diligent about your meal planning, where that protein's coming from. And then as you age, it becomes that much harder because as you age, your requirements for essential amino acids increase. So what I would say is, yes, absolutely, it can work. You do need to work harder at it. You need to be more thoughtful. You need to do more meal planning. I think it's more challenging. That's what I would say.
I'm going to ask a really weird question. Maybe it's not weird to you. And it might sound basic to my listeners, but I really think it's important for us to define this. What is a protein? Like, specifically, what's a protein?
Oh, that's a great question. So proteins are this part of life that really, I would say, it's like at its most core element, it's like what makes us living beings. And what proteins actually make up all different parts of nature. Inside of us, a protein is this core building block that makes up most of our solid mass. So over half of our bones, our muscle, our vital organs, but even things like our skin, hair, nails, the enzymes in our body are made up of proteins, hormones are made up of proteins, and they're made up of amino acids that contain this nitrogen. So it's this nitrogen containing element that basically like animates life. So it's a really cool kind of deep thing that's also like this core science thing that makes up who we are. And, I think maybe more relevant to us, we oftentimes hear about protein, I imagine, through the context of like your
Yep.
show and through people trying to get healthy as a macronutrient. You know about carbohydrates, you know about fat, you know about protein. So fat and carbohydrates are very different from protein. The primary reason why you eat fat and carbohydrates is to be used as energy. And I like to use the metaphor or the analogy of a house. If you live in a house and you need to run your dishwasher, turn on your lights, run the vacuum cleaner, watch TV, whatever it is, you need energy for that. And so you get that energy from the grid or from solar panels, or if your energy went out, you could connect a generator, maybe you have natural gas line for your heating. That's what carbohydrates and fat are for our body. Both of them are sources of energy that when we consume them, we break them down and they get converted into our natural energy source called ATP, which is like how we actually beat our heart, et cetera. Protein is fundamentally different. Protein's primary role is not for energy. It's not like a fuel. It's not like a gasoline. Instead, it's more like the actual parts that we build our house with. So, I'm looking at you right now via Zoom. I'm looking behind you. There's a door, there's hardwood floor, there's paint on the wall. All of those have to be made up of raw materials, right?
Right.
Inside of us, it's the same. Like our muscle is actually made of something. Our skin is made of something. Our hair is made of something. They're
That's
made
when we
up.
say building blocks. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
They're actually made up of proteins. And similar to our house, but at a way faster rate, things break down.
Yeah.
It's like you walk, your hardwood floor eventually needs to be replaced. Well, actually, in our own body, about 2 to 3% of our muscle tissue every single day, all the proteins get replaced. When you look at more like other parts of our body, it's up to like 20 to 30% of the proteins have to be replaced every day, meaning the proteins get old and they don't work as well anymore.
Yeah.
And so they have to get replaced. And when that happens, if I just, I like to look down at my arm because it makes it like real for me. I'm looking at my arm, I see it's made up of skin, and I'm like, whoa, there's actually millions of proteins that make up this skin. Well, each one of those little proteins at some point breaks down. Some right now today are breaking down. And when they break apart, they actually break apart into the little amino acids that make them up. There's 20. So the proteins are like the building blocks of the skin, and the building blocks of the protein are these little amino acids. Maybe think about it like a brick. Like you have bricks that you build your house out of, and inside of the bricks, there's like these little grains of sand.
Yeah.
The amino acids are like the little grain of sand that make these bricks that are the proteins. And when they break apart, some of the amino acids can't be reused. I just pee them out via urea. You just pee them out.
Okay.
Some of the amino acids can still be reused. Like they can be reused to help build a new protein. So similarly, if we were going to, remodel your house that I'm looking at right now, you might say like, wow, this hardwood floor is still like really nice, but I want to like take the trim off and redo that and change the hardware on the door. So similarly, some of these amino acids you can keep and they can get reused, while some stuff has to be replaced and rebuilt. That's why we eat protein. When you eat a chicken breast, you digest that chicken breast. The protein goes into your digestive system. You break down the protein into the amino acids. They go into your blood and they help rebuild that skin protein. If you stop eating protein and you don't get enough amino acids, you literally can't build new skin, can't build new hair, can't build new muscle, can't build new tissue for your kidney, and you will die.
So when someone says something's not a complete protein, is that what they're meaning, that it doesn't contain the complete profile?
That's a great question. So there's actually like two things going on, and this analogy of the house might be a good one to go back to. So if we were going to, remodel your house, there's both the workers that are going to actually like do the work, and then there's like the materials to do it. So when you eat a protein, when we talk about a complete protein, there's essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. There's 9 essential and 11 non-essential that make up a protein. The 9 essential ones, they're essential because your body can't make them. Like you actually must consume them. Your body can convert the 9 into the non-essential ones, but you have to eat them. So that's what defines a complete protein. But more importantly, I mean, maybe not more importantly, but something that's so often overlooked and people just don't understand is those 9 essential amino acids are also the workers. They're like the construction guys that actually come and rebuild.
Okay.
When you consume a lot of essential amino acids all at once, which would be a high quality protein or protein powder or supplement, and those essential amino acids go into the blood, they communicate to the body to say, hey, let's rebuild that old skin. Let's replace less functioning muscle proteins with better functioning muscle proteins. They're the stimulus. They're the workers that do it. Lots of times people have this idea that it's like, no, you have to do and I'm not, obviously you want to do resistance training, but you have to do the resistance training and then you have to eat the protein to help get the gains. You can actually get new protein synthesis directly from your nutrition.
Really?
From the nutrition itself, it stimulates a degree of protein synthesis. And it's the essential amino acids that are the ones that do that. So when you're talking about a complete protein, what you're getting from that is you're getting a protein source that has all the essential amino acids, the one your bodies can't make. So yeah, you do want to focus on that. You either want to get a complete protein source on its own, or you need to combine proteins to get that. And you're getting this chemical messenger in the essential amino acids that are actually telling your body to go and replace old proteins with new ones.
Makes total sense. Okay. I have more questions about that and like how that compares to BCAAs, but I want to back up for a minute and I'm going to take it a little bit more general here. So we hear a lot for midlife women that as we approach 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, it gets more and more important for protein. It's just absolutely critical. We keep hearing that. What's your take on why that is and what's actually happening that we need to be really paying attention to this?
So there's two key things. The first one is that our ability to digest protein decreases over time. It just, we don't have as many enzymes. We're not as good at basically breaking down the proteins and getting the amino acids out of them. But the more important thing is actually that our sensitivity to amino acids in the foods we eat, for them to stimulate new protein synthesis, that decreases, which is called anabolic resistance. And that basically increases as we age. And it makes pretty logical sense. You think about it, when you're young and youthful and you're, more, your body is built to go out and to hunt or to bear children or to like do these like much more intensive activities, right? It's more important that you're more physically vibrant. As you get older, our body's not prioritizing like, I want to make sure my skin is as elastic as possible with like the most, like the most new proteins. I want to make sure I'm like building and maintaining this muscle. And so it just decreases over time. And the good thing is there are ways to overcome it though. And it's through being that much more attentive to the quality of the proteins that we eat and eating them in ways that we get the biggest impact from the essential amino acids in them. And it's to looking towards supplementation because there are specific types of supplements that are more effective than protein. They're like, and that's not to say that, I'm a big proponent of like eat whole balanced meals, make that the core of your life and enjoy it with people you love. But when you're trying to fit in that much more protein, there's smarter ways of doing it than just trying to, eat one more can of tuna fish or. Okay,
I'm gonna ask you about that. But one thing I want to kind of circle back and complete on is there's something you didn't mention. I just want to get your take on it. A big reason I share with women that I want them to up their protein and their resistance training, honestly, is that we do tend to lose muscle as we age. So we didn't even touch on that. Can adding in protein actually preserve that, or is that have to be combined? Or what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so the reason why we lose muscle is for those things that I described, because a few things. One is, again, our ability to digest protein goes down, our sensitivity to the amino acids to stimulate new protein synthesis, which ultimately is new muscle synthesis.
Yeah.
But the same thing actually happens with exercise. The impact of resistance training on our bodies as we age becomes less significant. So honestly, you need to be that much more thoughtful about resistance training as you get older, because you don't get the same benefits when you're 50 that you did when you were 25.
No,
literally your body, it just doesn't respond as robustly. So that's why we start to lose muscle. And so it's that much more important as we age to think, and it starts at age 30.
Yeah.
But then it becomes progressively more challenging, age 40, 50, 60, to be able to maintain that lean muscle, because our bodies they're not using protein as well as they did before. So what I would say is, it can come through, it's not going to just come through like typical protein diet, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come through more strategic supplementing combined with resistance training. And we can get into why that is.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So when someone's trying to, this is a definite issue that I see with people. They try to stuff in now all the protein. They're hearing, I've got to eat almost my body weight or what my goal body weight is, and they're like, they're trying to eat steak for breakfast now, and like, how do I get in enough? And what you're saying is that's not necessarily the focus. It shouldn't be how do I eat enough. It's how I should be supplementing with enough. Did I hear you correctly?
Well, I think both ways can work. I think it's specifically in the context of a woman over 40, you're going to get greater impact through thinking about supplementation than you're going to get from just trying to eat more steak.
Yeah.
And I will get very specific about why.
Yeah. Help us with why. Why.
So in a young adult, so these are people in their 20s. If I eat 30 grams of beef protein,
okay,
I will actually stimulate more muscle protein synthesis than if I ate over twice that amount, 70 grams of beef protein, if I eat it on its own versus eating it as part of a mixed meal.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because again, going back to this, when you eat protein, you're just trying to get these essential amino acids out of the protein and into your blood in the highest concentration as you can get them. That's what tells your body, go rebuild proteins. Take the old ones and rebuild them, build new muscle, etc. And so if you're mixing the protein with broccoli and potatoes and a bunch of other stuff, your body doesn't digest them as quickly and they don't hit the blood as quickly, and so you don't get as much impact. Okay? So that's not an endorsement of then like, well, now you need to like always eat your protein separately. Like that's not what I would say.
Okay.
Instead, what I would say is listen to this next fact. Whey protein, which I think is the most studied protein powder source. And if you go for a whey protein isolate, it's allergic to virtually very, very few people. It doesn't have lactose, et cetera. It stimulates 3 times the amount. It increases the EAA plasma levels, the amount of EAAs that go into your blood, 3 times more than beef does, gram for gram. So 20 grams of whey protein powder is not equal to 20 grams of beef. It's a lot more.
So this is why I'm assuming, Angela, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming like when you look at like the bodybuilding world or the fitness world, why people would want to eat whey isolate specifically pre and post workout to get that in.
Yes. And it has a lot more impact than just trying to eat more meat. And that doesn't mean like don't eat meat, right? Because meat has, and whatever your diet, choices are around whole foods, like, but if you choose beef, it has lots of other great minerals and vitamins. It has other good stuff in it. But in terms of really trying to hit these super high protein intakes, like a gram of protein per pound of body weight, you're going to get more benefit from whey protein shake than you're going to get from more beef. Like three times the impact. It's going to be a lot more.
Okay. So, and I want to make sure I'm following and answering the right things here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're eating, so what you're saying is you're still getting the grams of protein. You're just not your body's not utilizing it as well as it would use something like a whey isolate.
Like a whey isolate, yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm talking young adults. So it's going to get really mind blowing once we get to people over 40. Well, so now if you compare that whey protein to essential amino acids.
Okay.
Right. So, and the difference is a whey protein, and we can break down all the proteins, but we'll get too nerdy. A whey protein is already a very high quality, like protein supplement.
Right.
It's only about 45% essential. 55% is non-essential. And that doesn't mean those aren't good, but you really don't need them. And they stimulate 0 additional protein synthesis. There's many studies that show this. There's no additional protein synthesis that gets studied. It's only the essential ones, right? And they still have to be digested. So when you take an essential amino acid supplement, it's only the essential amino acids. It's none of the non-essential. And they can be formulated slightly more ideally for the human body. You can like tweak the leucine and the isoleucine and the valine. And I mean, interesting enough for plant-based people too, they can be plant-based. Like my company, we make plant-based ones. So it's like, it's actually fine for vegans or whoever you are. But these stimulate 3 times the amount as the whey protein.
Wow.
So the degrees, it's like you go from like beef as part of a whole meal versus beef on its own versus whey protein powder versus EAAs or essential amino acids. The degree of stimulation is so much greater for the free-form supplement that when you're trying to eat like these way higher daily levels of protein intake, I'd be like, chill out, like eat 3 good meals, that like make you feel good. I mean, I would encourage you to eat animal proteins, fruits,
so if you have
vegetables,
like
fiber.
You have maybe your eggs for breakfast and your chicken for lunch and your steak for dinner, but you're saying, but then still eat essential amino acids.
Then take essential amino acids in between, right? Take them first thing in the morning or take them in the middle of the day, take them before bed. And that they're going to have way more impact than you're going to get from just trying to eat more meat. And that's at a young adult level. All right. So in young adults, EAAs are about 3 times the impact as whey. As you get older, for about every decade over 30, you can just kind of count that it's that many times more. So essential amino acids are about 3 times the impact of whey if you're 30, 4 times if you're 40, 5 times if you're 50, 6 times if you're 60. The most amount of studies that are published, and these are not like brand studies, these are NIH, NASA, military studies. They're more focused on young adults and on seniors like 60s. So it's like some of this is a bit more conjecture in between like exactly how much you're getting at each age group in between. But it's about, whatever, if you're 50 years old, you're going to get about 5 times the impact from taking essential amino acids than you're going to get from taking whey protein. And already that's more impactful than the steak. So I think if you could generally think, let's say you weigh 150 pounds.
Okay.
If you could eat like 100 grams of protein per day, and then that last 50 grams, instead of trying to cram down another 50 grams of
Yep.
protein, take, approximately, 2 servings of essential amino acids during the day.
Okay.
And you're going to get the impact that you would have gotten from trying to eat all that additional protein.
Just from 2 servings of that.
If you're about 50 years old, right?
And if I'm hearing you
because
correctly,
those 10
it's because
grams
it's
are
working,
about,
and it's working with what you already ate, right? It's like almost like complete. It's working together with that.
so you can take essential amino acids entirely on their own, and they stimulate this protein synthesis to a degree way greater than if you were just eating, meat, right? You can also combine them with meals if you prefer, and it will better utilize the protein in those meals.
So the same way that I would tell somebody to take digestive enzymes, for example, with meals, this would almost do the same. Taking aminos with meals.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Well, it wouldn't do the same thing. It's less.
I mean,
about
it's not going to help break
enzyme.
it down, but it helps you utilize more. Because that part of what enzymes do is help you utilize more.
Yeah, so it's like going back to the digestive enzymes really help you break down the proteins to make the amino acids available.
Okay.
This is more like you're hiring more workers to come be in the house to help remodel it. So when the supplies arrive, the supplies can actually get used to redo your bathroom, and they're not just waiting around. It's like you're eating all this protein, you're ordering all these like supplies to redo the bathroom, and like there's no workers to do any work.
Right. So it's like kind of like what it's just going to sit there. It's like it makes sense. It's not going to get utilized.
Yeah. And it's not that just to be clear, it's not that it does not get utilized. It's that it gets utilized to a much greater degree if you consume essential amino acids. What I would say though is like in terms of actually talking to someone about timing and when and how to take them, I think another component that comes up around like protein timing is not that important if you're 20 years old. I don't think. How often, I mean, if you're like a competitive bodybuilder, like yes, or if you're like a really intense athlete and you're really trying to fuel your workouts, but if you're a young adult, protein timing is not that important. As we get older, it becomes more important. The more times that you can stimulate protein synthesis in your body throughout the day, the better. I would say try to, have 3 meals and take amino acids 2 times a day, or like have 5 to 6 times where you stimulate it.
Sure.
And it does create more cycles of this protein synthesis because they only last like a few hours. But if you're 20, it's like, I don't know that it matters. When we're 40, when we're 50, like it actually does matter. When we're 60, 70, it really matters.
If you're enjoying this episode of Midlife Conversations, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you do not miss any new Midlife Conversations. Also, if you want to try the Kion aminos that we're talking about, if you go to GetKion, Kion.com/Natalie Jill, you do get 20% off your first order. So I have a lot more questions for you, but I want to share. So the reason I actually am interviewing Angelo, the reason this topic even came about is I discovered Kion on my own. Like I kind of on my own and the reason is for years, my husband actually, since I've known him, he's always drank BCAAs all day long. Like he fills his water. And I never really understood when I would ask him, it was like his way of getting in more aminos. So I kind of left it at that, but it was always BCAAs. So I went down initially the road of wanting to add in branched chain amino acids. And I had a really hard time finding one without a lot of artificial junk. And I think it's because of leucine, they try to cover up the flavor. So I found Kion, your brand, looking for one that was more natural. What I didn't understand at the time, and that's a big reason I really wanted to ask you these questions, is what I didn't understand, and I think a lot of people fall in this camp, is we don't know the difference between branched chain amino acids and aminos. Like somehow the bodybuilding world talked about branched chain amino acids, and that's what we all got fixated on. And most companies out there, it's BCAAs, right? So help me understand that. And before you answer that, I just want to share with everyone. Now, granted, I'm doing a lot of things. Like I do hormone replacement. I've shared that on my audience. I definitely do enzymes. I definitely eat a lot of protein, but I have really leaned out in the last year, and I do drink these all day long. So I can't say it's just this, but I think it's absolutely helped with muscle for sure. So that being said, and I don't know if you've got others that would say that same experience, but I'm curious.
They absolutely would have that experience. And like something like essential amino acids like this, it's not just kind of in vitro or like lab studies, it's human outcome studies showing people maintaining lean muscle under significant caloric deficit.
Yeah.
Like literally like people building muscle during caloric deficit, people maintaining muscle while at bed rest for 28 days.
Wow.
Like Like it's very
That's
significant
huge.
human outcome studies that like essential amino acids like this in this type of formula, the formula really matters, which we can get into later.
Okay.
It will help you. You can lose fat and maintain or build muscle.
Wow, that's
So
it's like a miracle. It's not, to me, it's not
yeah,
like a miracle supplement, but
yeah,
there's science behind it. So okay,
it's science. It's real.
let's start with what is BCAA and why did that get such popularity and what's the difference?
I just want to make sure I'm not creating any fights
Okay.
in your
Okay.
home though
No,
either.
you're not going to create any fights. My husband can probably hear me right now. And he actually
You
stole
switched?
my berry flavor.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
he left
So
me
yeah,
with the other flavors. He took the
yeah,
berry. So he's on board drinking it. He just might not understand. But
yeah.
I'm in a town. It won't be a
So
fight.
basically, it's a story like many things in life. Like there's different interests that are all kind of going at the same time and competing. And so you've got academic and research studies, and you've got marketing and business.
Yes.
And there's a whole academic study, I guess trajectory of studying protein, amino acids, how do they work with athletes, how they work with older people, what's going on. And over the last 40 years, a long time ago, about 40 years ago, we really started to uncover, wow, of the 9 essential amino acids,
Okay.
3 of them, these branch chain amino acids or BCAAs, seem really important. And those are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. They seem to be really the ones that you actually need. If you just took these 3, then you would stimulate this muscle protein synthesis. You would build and maintain muscle while losing fat, right?
Okay.
Like maybe that would work. And they did studies, and basically the degree to which we could measure it at that time made it look like that was the case. Like we were taking very small snapshots
Yes.
of muscle growth, and we thought that it worked. And then over time, what we realized, that's actually not what happens. It's like a false signal. You take
Yes.
these branch chain amino acids, it seems like it's kickstarting this new muscle protein synthesis, and then it just crashes and ends. And what happens is there is 0 total additive protein synthesis from taking BCAAs on their own. If anything, it's
Wow.
potentially negative. And this is it's been conclusive for at least
So
10, 15 years, but even
wow.
there's a very robust, the International Society of Sports Nutrition has a whole great paper from 2017, and they just break it down, just show that BCAAs are not anabolic. They don't do anything if you're just taking
So it's
them on
kind
their
of
own.
just, it's based on what you're sharing and the research you're saying. It's just a waste if you're just taking something for flavor at that point.
If he's drinking it all day on its own, it's a total waste. If he was combining it with plant proteins to make plant proteins that were maybe almost like in a protein, yeah, it's a total waste of his money. It doesn't do anything, and it's potentially even catabolic because it's basically telling the body, hey, let's replace these proteins, but then there are no amino acids to do it. You don't have the other essential, and it actually can stimulate breaking down muscle to supply new amino acids to try to rebuild protein. So BCAAs,
Angelo, it's wild. I feel like most companies have not caught up. Most companies are still marketing BCAAs.
well, that's
like
the
that.
business thing, right?
Yeah.
Science comes out, businesses come up, they start marketing it. There's money in it. There's demand. People are
Sure.
familiar with it. And lots of businesses are just like that. It's like they don't care that it doesn't work.
Right.
There's demand for it, and there's a whole marketing thing. And so they keep doing it. And I'm not trying to attack or knock on
For
this,
sure.
but that's what it is, because anyone that reviews the literature knows that's not the case. To the degree that even some brands that were originally BCAA pure supplements have since added essential amino acids, but they don't even market it that it's that.
They're just
because
covering
they
their
know it
bases.
won't
Yeah.
work otherwise.
Interesting.
Yeah. BCAA supplements on their own, taken on their own, are not anabolic and are a waste of your money.
Okay. How often do you recommend taking aminos? Like I drink them a few times throughout the day. I usually fill and put them in my water bottle. And can you combine them with things like, for example, when I go to the gym, and tell me if I'm doing this wrong. I mean, sometimes I throw it in my bottle. I put creatine, I put my aminos, I put my prebiotics sometimes in there too. Is that okay? Or are you hurting anything by combining?
You're totally fine combining those 3 things. There's not really something that comes to mind immediately that would be like, that it's going to interfere with combining it with the aminos. I think, it's really about what works for you. So this is what I would say, taking a step back and be like, what's our primary goal? Why are we even taking this thing? We're taking, essential amino acids ideally because we want to maintain or build lean muscle. And we ideally probably want to keep burning fat. There's a body composition objective in general where it's like, hey, I want to maintain a more ideal body composition. I want to burn fat and maintain lean muscle and maybe even get stronger over time, right? That's a core aspect of it. And then in the context of we're aging and it's becoming more challenging for us to do that. So in that, what I would say is, again, I would encourage people to think about trying, again, this is people over 40, trying to consume either essential amino acids or protein powder or a protein focused meal every few hours.
Okay.
I think that's the most ideal way to kind of use this. And so what I would say is, when does it work best for you? For me, I don't like to eat first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I take essential amino acids first thing in the morning with creatine, and I take them every single day. And the benefit of that daily habit is going to way outpace any like me trying to time it
Yeah.
differently. Like I need to take it at like
It's
it's
like
not.
you just know you're getting them in first
I'm
thing.
taking
Yeah.
it every single day. And it's the same thing with creatine. You have to take creatine every single day for it to work. You can't
Yes.
take creatine like 3 days
It
a week.
doesn't work that
It
way.
doesn't
Yeah.
work that way, right? And so like that, I would say that's the most important thing. Then if you really want to get into like, first of all, like when will you do it every single day and how can it fit best in for you? If it's like, I like taking it mid-afternoon instead of trying to have a snack, right?
Yeah.
Or I like, whatever that time period, or I like taking it right before bed. It's awesome right before bed. You literally kickstart a whole nother, bout of protein synthesis. You're basically like building muscle, replacing old muscle fibers while you're sleeping. Like that right before
Like,
bed's
why
awesome
not
too.
just do that? Yeah, that makes total sense.
If you want to time it around exercise, taking essential amino acids before resistance training is about 50% better than taking them after.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because the synergistic effect of the resistance exercise, the increased blood flow, you're basically taking the amino acids and then they're being pushed into your muscles. So you get that much more muscle protein synthesis. So already the combination of the resistance training plus the EAAs together, combine it to taking it before, you get the greatest impact. That doesn't mean that they're not also great afterwards. You can take them afterwards too, and they're still good. But if you're like really trying to figure out the ideal way around exercise, take them before. You get more bang for your buck.
Do aminos help improve energy, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, so I think energy is an interesting question. It's like, what do we even mean? Because I think lots of us drink caffeine and we think that improves our energy, right? Like caffeine actually just like blocks certain adenosine receptors in the brain and makes you feel like you don't feel yourself getting tired, right?
Right.
So I think at the most fundamental level, what do we mean by energy? There's a few ways that aminos improve energy. One is that the neurotransmitters in our brain are basically all the metabolites of amino acids. They come from amino acids, right?
Okay.
So like serotonin comes from 5-HTP, which comes from tryptophan. Like that is an essential amino acid. And so consuming essential amino acids overall are very closely related to improved mood. Like oftentimes people with different types of like mood disorders, emotional issues, like just getting in check your protein or in specifically your essential amino acid consumption can help fix those types of mood issues.
I think so many things that we blame on, we're always looking for like this external thing, but I think there's so much that when we are deficient in nutrients in general, we create issues like brain fog or moods or all of that. And I'm not saying there's not other reasons for that, but a lot of the things that we blame externally can be just nutrient deficiency. And just by changing that, so like to your point, the right amount of aminos makes a big difference with somebody.
Yeah, and it's complex, right? Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to solve everyone's problem, but looking for like the foundational pieces first. Like if you try to fix something with some way more complex potential drug solution, like start with like protein and amino acids. I think you'll find it can actually, there's a lot of things that can help regulate. Secondly, specifically with exercise, when we exercise, we burn basically a lot more amino acids, specifically leucine. And the reason for that is because leucine actually in the cell helps facilitate the conversion of things like carbs to ATP in the mitochondria. So while it's not like a fuel source, it actually helps facilitate that and you oxidize a lot more of it. When you oxidize a lot more of that leucine, there's something called the central fatigue hypothesis, which is that basically your leucine levels go down and your tryptophan levels go up relative to your leucine. And more of that enters your brain and that tryptophan turns into serotonin and it makes you feel sleepy. So one of the reasons that even like endurance athletes can potentially bonk or run out of energy is not just carbs or not just like fuel source. It's actually like those amino acid levels changing. Again, so whether you're doing endurance training or resistance training, by maintaining higher levels of essential amino acids, you basically can reduce both muscle fatigue, like your muscles don't get as tired, but also potentially reduce the impact of like your neurotransmitter levels changing and you starting to feel sleepy, not from like not having, energy, but not having like energy like a car, but actually like having this increased level of the sleepy like neurotransmitters. So yes, it can absolutely impact energy.
You're undoing a lot of misinformation I've had over the years. Like I just remember just from back in my fitness days, really learning that it was branched chain amino acids, not all of them, just branched chain amino acids. and learning it was only for recovery. That's what I remember that for some reason, like take them for
Uh-huh.
recovery. And I also was remembered being told to take them after workouts. So it's like, it's just as you're talking, I'm realizing all the things that have changed over the years, like with what I've been told and how this is just a big reminder that we always have to keep up with the science and what new information we're getting. Because like you said, you thought one thing too until you started seeing science and seeing results. Now you already had the benefit of understanding about combining and completeness and all of that. But as things catch up, you're seeing a big difference. And I love that's why you make products that really match that moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we just always, I think everyone like stay open to learning more and
Yeah,
seeing like what the most contemporary science and the really smart people say about how something works
sure.
and what the studies are saying. Because yeah, what you maybe thought was like the right way of doing something, you learn that it wasn't the case. And I think anyone who matures through life learns that, right? Like
I
you
would
maybe,
hope so, but
yeah,
it's really interesting because I still, I work with midlife women, and that's mostly who's listening to my podcast here. And there's still this big misconception just around muscle and protein in general. Like a lot of them are still afraid to actually lift heavier because they're worried they're going to look like a bodybuilder. Which what I want to say is that's you're not going to accidentally look like a bodybuilder. It doesn't work that way. But also this idea of aminos, I think it's a lot of them never they thought of it as a bodybuilding thing. They didn't weren't hearing until maybe this episode here that this actually helps you lose fat, that it helps you maintain muscle, it helps you grow, and it actually can help you feel more energy.
yeah. I mean, what I would say is that, I'm not saying that this is the desire of women, but it's what I hear oftentimes they're
Yes.
having these types of conversations. It's like, yeah, I don't want to get bulky. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really, it's looking for like a tone fit body. Right. And the ability of something like, Kion aminos basically to help you stimulate new protein synthesis, replace these old proteins, help you build and maintain lean muscle for way less than and way lighter than you would get from this like highly calorically dense meal. Right? Trying to eat one more of those. It's way more like in the lean, fit tone
Mm-hmm.
thing than
Mm-hmm.
getting huge, jacked bodybuilder.
For sure. I
You
mean,
know,
it's
but I
it's
mean,
almost
bodybuilders can use it too, but they would be taking like multiple servings,
yeah.
at multiple times a day, combined with all their egg, like
Yeah, it's just a
12
lot there.
eggs. And yeah.
But if I'm hearing you correctly, you're encouraging eat protein all day long. Like you definitely want people to
Yeah.
eat real food, or you have the protein shake if you want to add that in, but use this in conjunction. Or if you are doing fasting or you're intermittent fast, whatever, you're not eating later day, this is the perfect thing to supplement with and add in because it's going to help you regardless.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, everyone I would advise basic health is going to be move your body and eat whole
Mm-hmm.
foods, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like definitely eat whole food proteins multiple times a day. That said, as you're getting older and you're trying to maintain this fit body and it's harder to do that, rather than trying to eat that much more protein in between, supplementing with something like aminos is it's just more effective. It's more effective and it's easier in many ways. And so rather than like never use it to replace meals, but when you're trying to fit in that much more, like rather than trying to have another like protein bar or have, that much more whey protein powder, like this is more effective.
So one thing we haven't really touched on yet is the person that is not trying to necessarily maintain yet. They haven't had the physique they wanted. Maybe they're not even thinking building muscle yet, but they're really focused on fat loss. Would this be something good for them to add in?
It would be ideal. And I think the way you phrase it is perfect by specifically saying fat loss and not weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
Because some women may look at the scale and be like, I just want to lose 10 pounds, right? Or I just want to lose 20 pounds. But I think if you look a little bit deeper, you want to lose 10 pounds of fat or you want to lose 20 pounds of fat. It'd be great
Exactly.
if you maintain some of the lean muscle because I'm going to lose the fat and then you're actually going to see some of my toneness in my arms, right? Or in my legs, et cetera. And so that's really the goal. And so here's what basically happens. And I assume you've covered this with your audience and clients, et cetera. But with fat loss, there's a fundamental element that does come down to calories.
Mm-hmm.
That we have a certain amount of energy that we burn every day in whatever we do. And if we consume the exact same amount of energy via our food that we burn in a day, we're going to stay just as we are. If we consume less energy via food than what we currently need in a day, the fat stores in our body are going to start to be converted into energy for us to live off of. Like that's how it works. But the other thing that happens is that when we don't consume enough protein in our diet and we don't have enough amino acids, how does our heart rebuild its proteins? Because my heart right now, there's proteins in my heart right now that are breaking down and being replaced with new proteins. things. Where does it get those amino acids from? Muscle. When you don't consume enough protein or amino acids, in the similar way to that you break down fat stores, you actually break down muscle stores to then be converted into amino acids so that you can keep having hair, skin, hormones, enzymes.
Because they're going to put you in more important survival mode first.
Survival mode, right? It starts to act because your muscle is not only this thing that helps move your body, it's actually the reservoir of supplementary amino acids for proteins for the rest of your body.
Yeah.
So what typically happens if you do a really aggressive kind of short-term diet, you want to lose 10 pounds, about 6 pounds will be fat and about 4 pounds will be muscle. If you just do it aggressive right off the bat, fast. I don't think that is what most women, anyone who's listening to this in their audience, like that's what they're looking for. Instead, they'd be like, how can I just lose 10 pounds of fat?
Exactly.
Is there a way to do that? And it is possible. And
you know what's coming up for me around this is the trend with GLPs. And I'm not against GLPs at all for people that are taking them, whether they're microdosing them or doing them for fat loss. But what's coming up is there is that big risk, especially at higher doses, of people losing muscle. So to me, this is like a critical component that you've got to be taking aminos with that.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the thing with GLP-1s. I mean, it's a complex subject and drug, but fundamentally you're consuming way less calories. Like your gastric emptying is slowed, your appetite goes down.
Even at microdoses you are.
Yeah. If I'm like supposed to be, if I could eat 2,000 calories and now I'm eating 1,000 calories a day, 1,000 calorie deficit per day times 7 days, like that's 2 pounds a week easy. Like that's, that's like, and if
we get into more than 2 pounds, we're definitely tapping into muscle. I mean,
even at 2 pounds, you're going to be. And so here's what the science shows in the last few years. And these are actually a series of studies sponsored by the US military and trying to understand what happens to people when they're in a caloric deficit. A 30% caloric deficit. So let's just say that I should eat 2,000 calories a day to maintain my current weight. A 30% caloric deficit would be 600 calories less per day. That amount of caloric deficit would help you lose approximately like a pound and a quarter in a week or something, right? But in order to not lose any muscle, to basically have net protein balance, meaning that you don't burn any muscle at the same time, they showed that they had to have a 300% increase in essential amino acids.
Whoa, 300%.
Huge increase in essential amino acids to ensure that no muscle was lost in the caloric deficit. It's a lot, right? So that's a lot.
This is really important. Yeah, it's not as simple as just eat more. Like you've got to really be thinking about this.
You got to eat a lot more protein and high quality protein or supplement. So what I would say is if you're trying to do already in this delicate balance of I'm trying to cut calories, and I think, let's say it's 500 calories a week you're trying to cut, right? Which would be about a pound a week, which I think over the long term, like that's sustainable. You can do that like through really thoughtful.
I say 1 to 2 pounds, like 2 pounds. I'm up to 1 to 2 pounds is any more than that. I'm very concerned for people on that.
But you could do 2 pounds, but 2 pounds, I mean, that's, that is about 1,000 calories, deficit that could be combined through only diet or through exercising that much more, et cetera, right? If you really want that to only be fat and to be no muscle and that's quite a bit less, calories, food. And maybe it's not less food. It's like, if you cut out empty a bunch of like
but
fatty
most of the time
oils,
it's going to be like, it's going to be changing your food, but it's going to be less calories overall. It is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be significantly less calories. I guess on a food perspective, you can still eat a lot of vegetables and fruits probably. Yeah. You're just not getting to eat, super calorie dense carbs and fats and stuff. But saying that you're doing that, if you want that to be all fat and no muscle, I would say I would be looking at trying to take something like Kion Aminos 2 to 3 times a day, taking probably 2 servings at a time. You could actually take up to 3 servings at a time to have linearly improved benefit.
Do you do that, Angela? Like how much
I
do you
personally take? I take 3 servings every morning.
So, and is that the only time? And then
that's
more
not something
times
you have to do. I also own a company and like I have as much as I want. And
but do you do it multiple times throughout the day or just that 3 times in the morning like that?
I do it 3 times in the morning. And then if I don't feel like I want to have breakfast around 9 or 10, I do it again then.
Okay.
It's like I try to have protein. I try to have essential amino acids so I take Kion Aminos. I mean, I also have a protein powder or my whey protein isolate, or I eat a meal with protein in it every 3 to 4 hours. So depending on what's going on in my day, like it could be more or less. And if I'm training in the afternoon, like if I'm going to go to Muay Thai or something, like I'm definitely taking aminos before I do that and I'm drinking it while I'm doing the exercise. So for me personally, yeah, I mean, I could be taking 3 servings, sometimes 3 times a day.
That
But
makes sense.
you don't need to do that.
Yes.
What I would say though is like, if you are trying to feel that you're overweight and you specifically want to lose fat and you're trying to lose like 2 pounds, 1 to 2 pounds a week, taking something like Kion Aminos in 1 to 2 servings a couple times or 2 to 3 times a day, you do have the potential. And I've seen this again and again and again. A guy in my office lost 25 pounds of fat with 0 net muscle loss.
Wow.
Yeah. By taking aminos 2 to 3 times a day, because in it, you're stimulating this protein synthesis and you're overcoming the fact that your body wants to use the protein because it's hungry, right? It wants to use the protein inefficiently, convert it to sugar and use it more like a carb to just fuel your body. And your body is just wanting to break down the existing muscle to fuel fuel your other organs with amino acids to rebuild proteins. Like you got to do something to overcome that. And it's either eat like way more protein or supplement like this, which I think is just much easier for people in that type of context.
Well, this is making sense to me in a lot of different levels. Like I think about where I lost, my gosh, I'm down like 19 pounds in the last 2 years. And mine was mostly from inflammation. I had and my listeners know I had an explant. Was living in a house with mold, but even not intentionally trying to lose weight, right? Like not being on a caloric restriction diet, I became less hungry. Because when you're not living in all those toxins, there's a lot of reasons for that. Your gut's changing, but it seems like anytime you are changing up your behavior, your patterns, if you notice that you are less hungry, no matter what that is, whether that's your GLPs or your toxins or how you're eating different, it seems to me it's becoming common sense as you're explaining this that we have to add these in, because if you don't add them in, you're at that risk, because anytime you're losing, like you said, you're going to be tapping into muscle stores. So it's just like an insurance policy. Why would you not add these to make sure that you don't have that happen?
Especially during weight loss. I mean, I think when you think about like the most kind of obvious clinically indicated use cases, it is if I'm trying to lose fat and maintain my muscle, and if I'm over 40 and my ability to just get what I'm trying to get out of protein and eat all this more protein and my appetite's not as high, like they're just kind of like that. It really becomes insurance policy there. It's like the weight loss thing. I think it's even more than insurance policy. I think it's like make it to where you can lose 10 pounds of fat and no muscle, not 6 pounds of fat and 4 pounds of muscle. Like it's kind of seems like an obvious win there. Or for the aging thing, it's like just building the daily habit of it. Like you're the person who's potentially going to, it's actually interesting. I was just talking to one of the lead research scientists who's done tons of this work, and he personally has done DEXA scans. He's like in his, he's like 70 now. He's been doing DEXA scans for like 30 years. He's had like net muscle increase over the last 30 years from just taking essential aminos every single day and doing his resistance training 3 days a week. And he's not doing as much. Like that can be you. And like that's the insurance policy.
Yeah, I love that. And ladies, listen, if you are not bought into like you've got to be eating more protein and adding muscle and keeping muscle, like you've got to, because when we lose muscle, not only are we slowing our metabolism down at rest, which is going to be, the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest. So the less muscle you have, you're going to slow your metabolism down. You're not going to burn calories at rest. Second, if we're not adding muscle and we're losing muscle, we are going to risk more bone loss. So bone loss comes from a number of things, hormone decline being one, but also losing muscle, not adding muscle, we're going to be at risk for bone loss. Bone loss and not adding muscle also could lead to more injuries. So this is how we start getting fractures and falls and all of that. So all of this is super critical. And also another component we didn't really touch on, but is the whole pain thing. Now, even though this is more something that helps with recovery versus pain, when we don't have an optimal body with the right muscle and we're not fully functional, we also will feel more pain. So all of this ties together. So this to me is a must add. I'm probably a customer for life now, Angelo. Like I love this. And now you've convinced me I need to have even more of them. You all, by the way, if you're listening and you want to try this, if you go to Kion, Kion.com/Natalie Jill, you do get 20% off for trying it. So it's getkion.com/Natalie Jill. My favorite flavor that my husband stole from me is the berry one. They're all good, but he stole my berry. That was my favorite. But they've got some cool ones like cool lime and mango. So you can mix them. And I mix mine with creatine and with my prebiotics too. That's how I've been doing them.
That's a great daily stack.
Yeah. Angelo, thank you so much for this conversation today. I'm probably going to have more questions for you, but I think you covered the majority of them. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime.